Hello, I'm John Richards from Paladin Cloud, and today we're talking about the Center for Internet Security's Microsoft Azure Foundations benchmark. We're looking at recommendation 3.9. Ensure allow Azure services on the trusted services list to access this storage account is enabled for storage account access. That's a mouthful. But this recommendation covers Azure storage accounts. The CIS description is some Azure services that interact with storage accounts operate from networks that can't be granted access through network rules. To help this type of service work as intended, allow the set of trusted Azure services to bypass the network rules. These services will then use strong authentication to access the storage account. Well, why would we need to give these services specific access? Well, turning on firewall rules for storage account will block access to incoming requests for data, including from other Azure services. We can re-enable this functionality by enabling trusted Azure services through networking exceptions. Previous CIS recommendations have us adopting least privilege principles. Rather than defaulting to allowing services to access a storage account, instead, we set the default so nothing has access to the storage account. This recommendation ensures important services like backups, logging, and security monitoring still function. We have a policy within Paladin Cloud called Enable Trusted Microsoft Services to Access Storage Account that monitors the configuration settings for this CIS recommendation. Paladin Cloud is an open source, security as code policy engine that monitors your cloud environments for misconfigurations. Enable Trusted Microsoft Services to Access Storage Account is a security policy that checks Azure's account storage assets to verify they allow trusted Microsoft services access. Not allowing doesn't create a vulnerability in and of itself, but could mean security monitoring misses a vulnerability or causes an operational impact. Because this isn't immediately exploitable, but could create blind spots in your security, we classify it as a medium severity security violation. Now that we understand the risk, how can we audit this? Let's look at a few ways. First, we're going to do it via the Azure portal. So we're going to navigate to the portal. We're going to go to the storage account section. To audit this recommendation, we'll take a look at the networking section. Here inside networking, we'll want to have enabled from selected virtual networks and IP addresses set. Then we'll verify that allow Azure services on the trusted services list to access this storage account is selected. Now, let's check that status via the command line. Azure offers Azure Cloud Shell for running CLI commands right from the browser. Here, we'll run a command to list the properties of the network rule set for our storage accounts. For this recommendation, we're checking the bypass value. We want that to be Azure services. Those with a value of none need fixing. Let's look at the steps needed to fix this. To do so, we can return to our storage accounts network settings and check the box allow Azure services on the trusted services list to access this storage account. Then we save our changes. If you use infrastructure as code, you may have built your storage accounts using Terraform, Bicep, or ARM. In that case, you'll want to modify the code so the problem isn't replicated on future deployments. One way to avoid misconfigurations is to use a platform like Paladin Cloud to automate detection. Paladin Cloud runs policies across assets. Those assets can be scoped by custom asset groups based on things like subscription or cloud providers. I'll scope this session to just assets on Azure. The Paladin Cloud dashboard shows us metrics on the severity, category, and quantity of policy violations. Earlier, we learned that enable trusted Microsoft services to access storage account is a medium severity, so it's represented here. Here we can see a list of assets in violation of this policy. By clicking on a specific violation, we see more details. There's a link to the policy that will include documentation on how to remediate it. We can go to the individual asset and see what other policies are checked. Asset-specific details are listed below so we can find and fix any issues. Now, if this interests you, please check out the free open source repository for Paladin Cloud on GitHub and give us a star. Also, let us know if you have any questions or feedback. Thanks for watching.